Okay, so for Daf Lamed Aleph and Kiddushin, we are on the last line of Lamed Amid Beis. Last line. Tani Rebbe Omer Galev Yadoli Pnei Misha Amar V'Hayolam Sheben Mechaber Esima Yosim Yibaviv Mipnei. So we learned in the Brisa, Rebbe says it is revealed and known before the one who said and made the world. So I guess why does it come not Rebbeinu Shalom B'Kadosh Baruch Hu, but I guess the one who said and created the world, and the world was, he knows the psychology of how he created the world. That a son honors his mother more than the father because she uses words and is nice. Maybe not necessarily that the father's not nice, but she's verbally more communicative and dealing with them. Therefore, Hashem commanded kabedes avicha, you have to honor your father before it said mother, because it's against the psychology of a person. And it's revealed before the one who said and created the world that the son fears the father more than the mother because he teaches him Torah. Therefore, Hashem proceeds in the pasuk that one should fear the mother before it talks about fearing the father. And this is an analogous statement to something we saw in the previous daf. Katana said in front of Nachman, when a person is causing tsaras or pain to his father and his mother, Hashem is saying it's good that I'm not living with them, because if I would have pain also right now. So in regard to the tzara, it also probably is just a lesson of the importance of shalom, because if you're having trouble from your kids, how much shalom can you have? And then if there's no shalom, Hashem isn't going to be in a place where there isn't shalom. Amar Yitzchak, Kala over Avera B'Seiser Kilu Dochik Ragli Ashchina. Whoever transgresses an Avera secretly, it's as if he's pushing away the legs of the Shechina. Shnamar Komar Hashem Hashemaim Kisi Vartzadom Raglai. As Hashem said, the heavens is my throne and the land is my footrest. So Rashi explains that someone who's doing it quietly, secretly, in a way that they're saying, "Oh, Hashem isn't here, and no one's going to see me," so that's why it's like pushing away Hashem. Tosfos says this isn't a place where he could have forced over his Yetzer Hara, and he didn't. But there is a discussion, I think it's in Chagiga there, where Tosfos quotes, it might also be later at the end of the first parak in about 10 more blot. If someone has urges and they have to be over, it says that a person should wear black clothes and go somewhere else and not be mechal Hashem. So many Rishonim say it's a tshuva process. You wear clothes that you don't feel important in, and you go to a place like galus mechaperes, so to try to avoid from doing a sin. There is at least one opinion who says in that case, though, it means that if you have to sin and you can't, unfortunately, you can't overcome the Yetzer Hara there, you have to do it in a way where it won't cause a chel Hashem. If people see that so-and-so, does that Avera, not that you're trying to do an Avera publicly, but it'll be a bigger chel Hashem, so you disguise yourself or go to a place where you're not known to minimize the chel Hashem. So perhaps that's what Tosfos is referring to with this statement. I'm Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi. Also, let him Amos It's forbidden for someone to walk 4 amos with a very straight bearing. Shenemar Maleas Arts Kvodo. The whole world, Hashem fills up the whole world. So if you would be walking very straight, it's as if you're pushing away the Shechina. The Shechina is above you, so it's gently pushing down. That's the implication we're getting from. That's how Rashi explains it. That the Shechina is coming from on top, and when you're standing very upright, you're kind of pushing it away. Rav Huna, Bereder of Yeshua, Lo Maski Abra Amos Begilei Arosh. So Rav Huna, Bereder of Yeshua, didn't walk for Amos with an uncovered head. Amar Shechina Lamalame Roshi. He said the Shechina is on top of my head. So from this statement, it seems that the Shechina, that he was using a head covering as a way of either reminding him or sign of subservience. Onkelos in Parshas B'Shalach says that V'chamushim alu b'nei Israel mi'eretz Mitzrayim. I believe Onkelos says that they went bereish galei with an uncovered head. So slaves had to wear some type of head covering. And it seems in the Holocaust, there were also part of the uniform was a little cap. So that was a sign of being subservient. Shal ben Almana Achas is Rabbi Eliezer. A certain son of a widow asked Rabbi Eliezer, Abba Amar Hashkini Mayim V'Ima Omer Hashkini Mayim Ezuvim Kodem. If my father asked me for a drink and my mother asked me for a drink, who do I have to do first? Amar Le Hanach Miancha V'Asei Kvodavicha Shatavimcha Chayevim Kvodavicha. Put away the honor of your mother and do the honor of your father, because you and your mother are both obligated to honor your father. So whether it seems to be independent of Rebbe's statement on the top of the Amud, but there Rebbe says that your natural inclination would be to do kibud aim. So therefore the pasuk says kibud av first. So I don't know if this is based on Rebbe's statement or not. Balifnei Rabbi Yeshua, Amar lo kach. He went to Rabbi Yeshua and it seems he asked the same thing, got the same answer. Amar lo, but then this Ben Almana persisted and said, Rebbe niskar shemau. If my mother would be divorced, then if my father asked me, my mother asked me, who would I have to have precedence for in kibud, because she wouldn't be chayav to give kibud to my father if they're divorced. I see from your eyelids that you are the son of an almana. So from the grammar, the way I understand it, he's saying just give them water in a pitcher and cackle like a chicken. So I guess so it seems that Rashi, I assume from Rashi, if you would bring water to the chicken coop, he would make some noise to let the chickens know it's there. So I guess you're saying bring a pitcher and they can serve themselves. I'm not sure that that's the pshat, but that's what so Rashi says that because he asked a question that wasn't Lamaisa, he says because he didn't need to do this and he only asked as if he needed to do it because he didn't have a father alive. So Rashi says that Rabbi Yeshua answered him in a derech schok, some type of unserious manner. Now, if Rabbi Yeshua knew that he had asked this question somewhere else, or because so there's two possible lessons that are not directly from the story, but one is how appropriate is it to ask a shaila that's not lamaisa? From this story, Rabbi Yeshua didn't seem to think it was that important to teach to learn something that wasn't lamaisa. And the other thing, though, is if he asked the shaila and got a teretz, why did he ask someone else? So he ended up getting the same answer, but then he persisted and asked. He went along and he asked Rabbi Yeshua something which he didn't ask to Rabbi Eliezer. So there are halachos. If you ask, if you get a psak, you can't go, shop psaking and try to get another psak to get a different, kula after you didn't get a kula on your first time. Chacham shehiter, ein chavera rashai losra. Darish ula. Rabba Apischa de Benasia, the great Ula, made a drush in the doorway of the house of the Nasi. My dixiv Yaduch Hashem Kamachayar Kishamu Imripicha. All the kings of the land will admit to you, Hashem, when they hear the sayings of your mouth. Ma'amar Picha lo nemar. It doesn't say the saying in singular of your mouth, ela imri pich in plural. B'shasha amar kadosh baruch hu nochi v'lo yelecha. When Hashem said the first two dibros, because there's a medrash that the whole world heard them. Amar Umos Olam l'fod atzmahu dorish. The Umos Olam said Hashem only wants his own kavod. That's why he's starting out with Anochi and Elo Yelecha. Kevan she'amar kabedus avicha v'esimecha chazru v'hodol ma'amaros rishonos. When they heard kabedus avicha v'esimecha, they retracted and they admitted to the earlier mamars, because they saw that if someone was only interested in their own kavod, he wouldn't give kavod to anyone else. But the fact that Hashem gave kibbutz to commanded people to honor their parents, so it shows that he wasn't in it for his own kavod. Rava has the same idea from a different pasuk. Rosh devarcha emes. The beginning of your words, plural, are true. Rosh devarcha v'lo sof devaracha. The beginning and not the end. So what's the pshat? Elami sof devaracha nikar sherosh devarcha emes. From the later words, they saw that your earlier words were truth, which they didn't know at the time that they heard the beginning of the words. Bami name Ravula at Heichen Kibud Ava Aim. They asked Rav Ula to what the extent is kibbut of aim. So earlier we said at Heichon Talmud Torah, and even though there was an implication of how much you have to teach him, just mikra or everything, but then we also said it's not just your son but also your grandson, your son's son. To hear what's the how far do you have to do kibbut of aim? Go see a certain pagan in Ashkelon, and his name is Dama ben Asina. Pamachas bikshu chachamim pragmati b'shishim ribo schar v'yemaftech munach meitachas rosh of shalav v'otziara. Once the chachamim wanted to do business with him, he was going to make a profit of 600,000 coins, because it's 10,000s. But the key was under his father's head, and he didn't want to bother his father to move to get the key. So he lost out on the business and the big profit, not to discomfort his father. Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Shmuel, Shalu es Rabbi Lazar Heichen Kibbut Ava Aim. They asked Rabbi Lazar, what's the extent of Kibbut Ava Aim? Amar Lahem Tzuruma Asa Oved Kachav V'Achal Aviv Ba'Ashkelon. Go see what a certain pagan did to his father in Ashkelon. V'Dam Ben Nesim Shmo. Bikshu Mimenu Chachamim Avanim LaEphod B'Shishim Ribo Schar. The Chachamim wanted stones for the ephod, which would have been 600,000 profit. So it seems to be the same story. This is a little bit more descriptive of what the background is. Rav Kahana must be shown in Ribo, and Rav Kahana said it was 800,000 profit. And the key was under the father's head, and he didn't want to trouble him to move. And the year later, Hashem gave him his reward. Hashem gave him a paraduma in his flock. At slow. So when it says Hashem give you reward, we know, we'll see in 10 blad or so, there's no reward. So why is he getting a reward? So is it because a non-Jew is different than a Jew? Is it for certain mitzvahs there is some schar, or is this just an expression? It's not to be taken literally, or it's not talking about reward, because we'll see that there's different, someone who's Eina Mitzuva Va'osa, who doesn't have a chiyuv, doesn't get as much schar. So what exactly is going on here? I'm not sure, but those are some possibilities. So the Chacham Yisrael went to him, Amar Lahem Yodani Bachem She'imani Bevakesh Mikem Kol Mamon Sheba'olam Atem Nosen Li. I know that if I ask for you all the money in the world, you'd give it to me. The only amount I'm asking for you is the amount that I lost by giving honor to my father, the 600,000 or the 800,000. And Reb Chanina says, so Reb Chanina said, if this is how someone who's not commanded yet does the mitzvah, certainly someone who is commanded to do the mitzvah should certainly do this to this extent of doing kibbut av. So I think this Gemara is upcoming, but if it already was, we talked about when you do kibbut, is it from your own money or is it from your father's money? But here, if you're going to be losing out money to do kibbut avayim, in this case, we see that you still have to take a substantial loss to do the mitzvah. The Amr Chia, is it Rab Chanina? Who is it? I'm not sure who the Ches here stands for. Yeah, Rab Chanina. Someone who's commanded and does the mitzvah is greater than someone who is not commanded to do the mitzvah. Amr of Yosef, Meresh Havamina Manda Hava Amr Li Halacha Rabbi Yehuda Amr Suma Pater Min Mitzvah Vina Yom Tamar Rabbana. The Halom Ifkidna Vahavdina. So Rav Yosef, who was blind, he said, originally I said, whoever could tell me that halacha is like Rabbi Yehuda, that a blind person is exempt from mitzvahs, I would make a suda, Yamatav Rabbana, means I'd make a suda for the Rabbanan, that I'm not commanded, yet I do it. Now that I know Rab Chanina's statement that a person who's commanded and does is greater than the person who's not commanded and does, whoever tells me now the opposite, someone who tells me that the halacha is not like Rabbi Yehuda and that a blind person is chayv in mitzvahs, I'd make a suda. The fact that I am chayv in mitzvahs, I'll make a suda for them. So what's the reason that, so psychologically, you'd think that if someone is not obligated to does it and do it anyway, that shows bigger dedication and then so that. So how come the person who's commanded and does it gets a greater schos? The reason is, they say, because you have a Yetzer Hara who's fighting you from doing it. The person who's not mitzvah doesn't have a Yetzer Hara who is trying to stop him from doing it. Rav Dimi Amar Pam Achas Lavush Sirkun Shel Zahav. Rav Dimi said, it seems that this Dama ben Nesima was wearing some very expensive golden garment. Vayoshe ben Gedolei Romi. He was sitting between the great people, leaders of Rome. Uvasa Ima B'Krasa B'Fana V'Tivcha Lo Al Rosho V'Yarka Lo B'Fana V'Lo Hichlima. And she ripped off this gold thing. She did something to his head. She spit in front of him, and he didn't take umbrage. He didn't get upset at her. Tani Avime Berei D'Rababo Yesh Machala Aviv Pisiona Vitardo Mina Olam V'Yesh Mavticho Matchinu B'Rachaim Umavio. As we turn to Amid Beis. So Abimi Rabbi Bo says someone could feed his father some type of fowl, some type of bird, which is a fancy. Rashi says it's a type of slav, type of quail, and you're punished for feeding him this. But you could make your father grind and a grindstone, and you'll get great reward. So Tosfos says that we'll see. Tosfos says that if you feed him, this very fancy stuff, but you make it look like a burden, or you don't want to, then that's a bad thing. But you could have him do hard work, but you could get Chayei Olam Haba because you are still speaking to him nicely and respectfully. And he brings a Yerushalmi that there's a person who was feeding his father nice things, and the father said, how do you have money to do this? He said, what does it matter? Just eat it. So he didn't do it out of respect, and he wasn't respectful towards his father. But the person, and then he finally said, just eat it, just chew it. And so it's as if he was feeding a dog. So that shows that this was a burden for him to feed his father. This stuff was a burden. But there was another person who was grinding at the mill, and he had an elderly father. But then the governor or the king said, they were drafting the father to have to work for the king. So basically, it seemed to be some type of forced labor. So the son said, "You'll do the work, and I'm going to go because there's no term to this work. So you'll work, but you won't have to be a slave, and I'll be a slave in your stead." So that was a case where he made the father grind, which is a hard job, but it saved him from having to be a slave to the king. So Rashi mentions these opinions also, but the first opinion also, he just says, are you doing it, or you could do something really nice, but in a non-respectful way, and that's not so good. Amar Babo Kagona Bimi Bri Kayim Mitzvos Kibbut of Chamisha Kibbut. So Rababo says, like Avimi, my son, who is Makayim Mitzvah Kibbut. Chamisha B'nei Samchei Hava Leila Avimi B'Chay Aviv. He already had 5 sons with Smicha. V'Chihava Asa Rababo. I guess this is Gemara now narrating why Rababo was praising him when Rababo would come to his son's house. Kare Abava Rahid. So when Rababo would go, knock at the door, Avimi would open it up himself. Now, what did Avimi himself not have Smicha? And that's what he's just called Avimi, and not Rav Avimi, but he had 5 sons with Smicha. So he would go to the door and open it. V'amar in ad dematoy hasam. He was basically saying, I'm coming. What we would nowadays say, I'm coming, until he reached the door, so the father would know that he was coming and he wasn't keeping him waiting. Yom achad amar le ashkin mayin. So one day Rav Abo asked him for water. At the icy le nimnam. So by the time he brought the water, he had dozed. Rav Abo had dozed off. Gachen kayalai nimnam gachen kayalai ade de isar. And he stayed there until he woke up to be able to give him the water as soon as he woke up. Oh, so he's Dais and Milsa. So because of that, he had special Siyata Dishmaya that he understood. He was able to darshan something which was either, I don't know, that no one understood it or he hadn't understood it. So Rashi says it either was a whole parak of Tehillim. So to me, the way I'm reading Rashi again, it seems that people had the drasha, it's just that he didn't know the pshat in that. And then while he was waiting for his father to wake up, he was zocha to understand a parak of Tehillim that he didn't understand. Or then Rashi brings an opinion that it was only one pasuk. Mizmor li'asaf Elohim ba'agam masachas. That's what Perek Ayin Tes in Tehillim. A mizmor to asaf. God, nations have come into your inheritance. They're destroying the Beis Hamikdash. So why is it a mizmor? Why is it a song? It should be a kina that there's something terrible is happening. So the drasha was that if it wouldn't have been that the Beis Hamikdash was destroyed, if Hashem wouldn't have taken out his anger on the sticks and stones of the Beis Hamikdash, he would have had to take it out Chas v'Shalom on Bnei Yisrael. So that's why it was a mizmor, even though it's talking about the Beis Hamikdash being destroyed. V'darash Avimi, and Avimi was able to darshan mizmor li'asaf. So his drasha, I just said from Rashi what this drasha was. Amrle Rav Yaakov bar Avol Abaye, and Rav Yaakov bar Avol Abaye was talking about the extent of kibbut of Aim Kugon Ana da Ada Sina Mibeirav Abba Magle Kasa V'Ima Mazgali Hechi Avid. So for me, that when I come from the Beis Medrash, my father is giving me a cup, and my mother has poured me Hechi Avid. What should I do? You could accept a cup from your mother, but not from your father. The Kavan de Bar Torah, who, since he's a Ben Torah, Chalsha Daite. If you will be honoring him, he's going to get weak because it seems to be the opposite with kibbut of aim if he's serving you. Rabbi Tarfon Havalela he ima dachal aimas to have a bayla mesak laporia gachin v'salik la. So there were Rabbi Tarfon had an elderly mother that anytime she needed to get I guess into the bed, she would climb up on him. And when she needed to get down, she would get down on him. Also comes to Bech Midrasha. So I guess he was praising himself in the Beis Medrash. Kibbut. They said you haven't even reached half of kibbut of aim. So I don't know if they probably didn't mean half literally. Did she throw a person in front of you into the sea and you didn't get mad at her? So though I'm not sure if Rabbi Tarfon would have gotten upset over something like that, because there's other Gemaras, I think it's in Nadarim, Lamed, Zion maybe, that he was very, very wealthy and had vast holdings, real estate, orchards, and I think also in a famine year, he was Makadesh many women. I guess he had to marry them also, because we learned earlier that the Chachamim banned a Mikudeshes and Arusa from eating Truma unless she gives it to her sibling, but he married a lot of women so they could eat Truma because he was a Kohen also. So just if she would have thrown his purse, how much money would he have lost? Maybe it would have been a lot of money, but he could have, he had a lot of other money also. So Rav Yosef ki Shamay Kalkra de Ime Amar Akum Mekame Shchina de Asya. Rav Yosef, when he heard his mother's footsteps, he says, I'm going to stand up from the Shechina that's coming. Now, in the previous summit, we said Rav Yosef was couldn't see if he was born that way. So some try to say that this wasn't necessarily. It's the only way he knew his mother was coming by the footsteps. He couldn't see her coming, but this seems to be a very positive attitude that he had. That the Shechina was coming, and there's stories about Rav Shlomo Zalman Auerbach also that not with his mother but with his wife, that he had very much respect and he would clear his head before he went in, because if there'd be Shalom Bayis, there would be Shechina in the house. Rabbi Yochanan, this is a very different, on a different level. Rabbi Yochanan says a statement, Asher Mishlo Chaman, it's better someone who never had any parents. Rabbi Yochanan ki avraso imo mesa aviv. Rabbi Yochanan, because Rashi says, because it's so hard to fulfill the mitzvah, so you're gonna do you're gonna be doing something wrong, and you're kibbud av the aim at some point. So then the Gemara tells us Rabbi Yochanan ki avraso imo mesa aviv, that when his mother became pregnant with him, his father died. Yalato, when he was given birth, Mesa Imo, his mother died, so he didn't have parents. So he never did anything wrong in Kibbud Avayim. V'chein Abaye, and similarly Abaye, his parents died when he was born, or his father died before he was born, and his mother died when he was born. So the Gemara asks right now, Ini, is that true? But Amar Abaye Amrli Aim. Abaye says that my mother explained to me something. The Gemara quotes it several times, Ksubos and other places. So the Gemara says, Hahi me Ribnise. No, she was the caregiver who raised him, but she was, or a nanny, but she was not his biological mother. Rav Asi Havalehahi Imas Kana. Rav Asi had an elderly mother. Amrale Beina Takshitin. I need jewelry. Avadle. He got it for her. Beina Gavra Niayin Lach Beina Gavra Deshavar Kabasech. He said, I need to get married. I need a husband, as someone who's as handsome as you. So then Shavkava Azala Arad Yisrael. He ran to Eretz Yisrael. Shama Deka Azla Abasra. He heard she was coming to Eretz Yisrael after him. Asal Kamed Rabbi Yochanan. So he came to Rabbi Yochanan with the Shaila. Amar Le, am I allowed to Eretz Chutzlaretz? Once I'm in Eretz Yisrael, am I allowed to leave Eretz Chutzlaretz? So was it that he wanted to meet her on the way to stop her trip? That's what it seems to be, that it would be a difficult trip. Or some seem to say that he was trying to run away from her because, so if you look in the Rambam and Perek Vav Hilchos Mamrim here, the Rambam seems to understand that his mother was suffering from dementia, and she was doing things that were not rational and stuff, and so he left because he was going to be in an impossible situation. So the Rambam says, in a case like that, this unfortunately is Lamaisa, you can hire people to take care of her, and you don't have to do it yourself. The Ravid seems to disagree. The Kesef Mishnah and the Radvaz, the Radvaz actually says something very interesting. He seems to say that the Radvaz there seems to say that there's some type of shock therapy, that if it would be usher for a son to give that therapy to his mother. We know you're not allowed to hit your parents, so they would actually be able to do a better job trying to get her better than the son could do, and that's why he was supposed to leave. But now that he's in Eretz Yisrael, can he leave Eretz Yisrael, whether to do kibbud of aim or try to avoid the problem because she was suffering from dementia? Amarle Aser. So he says, you cannot leave Eretz Yisrael. Likras ima mahu. He says, but what if I'm going? I'm not leaving. I'm going to greet my mother. So Amarle in Yudea. So Rabbi Yochanan says, I don't know if you could leave or not. So I'm not sure if the question was, and it's true that you're not allowed to leave Eretz Yisrael, but if I'm doing it to be kibbud aim, would that, bidocha, the mitzvah, the aver of leaving Chutz La'aretz? So Israch Porta, so he waited a little bit. Hadar Asa le Asi Nisratzi Lotze Samakim Yachzer Chalashal. So he asked him again, and Rabbi Yochanan said, Asi, if you need to go, Hashem should return you peacefully. Aska made Rabbi Lazar. he went to Rabbi Lazar, Ravasi, and he wanted to know, did Rabbi Yochanan really mean it or not? Amalei Chasar Shalom Dilma Mirsach Rasach. Chasar Shalom, maybe Rabbi Yochanan is mad at me that I bothered him. I asked him twice. So my Amalei. So Rabbi Lazar asked him, well, what did he tell you? Amarle Hamakim Yachzer Shalom. He said Hashem should return you peaceful. Amarle V'Himisa Derasach Lahavam Bavarach Lach. So if he would have been angry, he wouldn't have given you a bracha that you should pay peacefully. From the fact that he gave you a bracha shows that he's telling you can go. At the end, he heard that her Aaron was coming. So she had died in the road. If I would have known, I wouldn't have left. So according to the Rambam and stuff, so it's clear that if he would have known, it seems to be that if he knew that she was going to die, he wouldn't have left Eretz Yisrael to try to meet her because she wasn't alive anymore. The Rashash here explains, and with that he explains the Ravid who's arguing on the Rambam, is that from this Gemara, when he says, if I would have known, I wouldn't have left, he's saying I wouldn't have left Bavel to go to Eretz Yisrael in the first place if I know she was going to die, I don't know, by this time or whatever. So the pshat here is that if I would have known, I wouldn't have left Eretz Yisrael. But the Rashash explains, and it explains the Ravid Shita, that here, Iyadi Delonafki, he wouldn't have left Bavel in the first place. So now we're in the second wide line. Tana Rabbanan Machabda B'chayav Machabda B'mos. You have to honor your father in his lifetime and when he's dead. B'chayav Kate said, how do you do it when he's alive? Hanishma B'davar Aviv Lamakom Lo Yamar Shalchuni B'Shvil Atzmi Maruni B'Shvil Atzmi Patruni B'Shvil Atzmi. So if he has to do, it seems that he was in the Beis Medrash or something. Or Rashi seems to say if he's in a place where the people will give cover to his father, he can't say, I have to go right now, please let me go. But he has to say it in a way that I have to do something for my father right now, or let me go now so I can serve my father. So his father will get more covered that way. So that's how you should do it. Elakulhu b'shvil abba. You should always say b'shvil abba. B'moso. So how do you honor your father after he's dead? Ketzad haya. B'moso ketzad. How do you honor him after he's dead? Haya omer davar shmuel mipiv lo yomer kach amar abba el kach amar abba mari hareini kapars mishkava. You shouldn't say this is what I heard from my father, but this is what my father, my teacher. May I be a kapara for his state of rest right now. So Rashi is v'hani mili toch shnei masar chodesh. So within the first 12 months, you mentioned something from your father. You say hareini kapars mishkava. And after this, you just say Zichrono Levracha. So some people quote the pasuk word Mishlei Zecher Tzadik Levracha. This seems to be independent of that halacha. Just it's not bidin of being a tzaddik or being a Talmid Chacham. This is just bidin kibbutz. L'chai olam haba. She should be remembered for bracha l'chai olam haba. And so Rashi and the other Rishonim say because in 12 months the din of Gehenna isn't more than 12 months. So in the time where he might be in the Gehenna, you say Areinu Kaparas Mishkavo. To minimize suffering that he is in Gehenna, and after 12 months, you don't have to say Hareni Kaparas Mishkav anymore. Turn Rabban on Chacham Mishana Shem Aviv Shem Rabba Turkman Mishana Lo Shem Aviv Lo Shem Rabba. When a Chacham is speaking, he has to say the name. He has to change the name of his father as Rabbi, but the Turkman doesn't. Meaning, if his father's name was Reb Shmuel, he didn't say Reb Shmuel says. You have to say Abba Mari Zichron said. But a Turkman doesn't change his father's name or his Rebbe's name. So the Gemara doesn't understand right away. Avodaman, whose father? Elam Avodaman Turgaman, Atu Turgaman Labarchiyubahu. If the Rav would quote someone, the father of the Meturgaman has a chiyuv of respect to his father, so he couldn't say his father's name. Ella Amaravach Shem Aviv Shalchacham Shem Rabo Shalchacham. So we're talking about the Shem Aviv or the Shem Rabo of the Chacham who's speaking. The Turgaman is saying loudly to the whole assembled group. So meaning the Chacham is going to say his name, the name of his father. He'll say Abba Mari, but when the Turgaman says it, he doesn't say Abba Mari. He's going to say the actual name of the Chacham. Kihadam Abba Ravashi have a darsh bepirka. Iu Amar Abba Mari va'amrei ve'imurei Amar Hachi Amar Ravashi. So when Abba Ravashi was giving share, he said, my Abba Mari said, but the Amora, the one who said it over loud to everyone, said Rav Ashi said. So because he wasn't the Meturgaman's father, the Meturgaman was able to say Rav Ashi. So we'll leave it here 3 lines up from the bottom on Lamed Aleph Amid Beis.